Life is not a problem to be solved. You're not an engineering equation to be reduced. It's an adventure to be engaged. So let's build our way forward, not just answer our way forward, by designing our lives. That's why we do what we do the way we do it. Now, at this point, I'm going to go really fast because you all know this stuff. So the secret sauce is design thinking. If you were not people who knew design thinking or human-centered design, I'd do this more slowly. But basically, one of the ways you can reframe design thinking, one thing we happened onto is the best way to help people get it about what design thinking is to identify what it's not. There are lots of kinds of thinking. Engineering thinking is really good at solving problems where the equations are well defined, the boundary conditions are well understood, and it's repeatable. We love engineering. I have 2 engineering degrees myself. We have business thinking where you optimize. You're never done, you're never right. Customers never love you enough, competition's never defeated enough, market share's never high enough. But in figures of merit, quantification, optimization mechanisms can succeed. You can run business effectively. We do research, start with a hypothesis, dependent, independent variables, an analytic system, getting down to either a result or the critical question to which there is no answer. And if you make actual progress on a question to which no one has had an answer to ever before in history, we give you a prize. We call it a PhD. It's an actual creation of rigorous knowledge. That's what a PhD is supposed to be. It's a really effective way of doing things. All 3 of these are really effective forms of thinking. They're tools in the box, mostly for tame problems. And who knows the technical distinction between tame and wicked problems? That's a technical term. It was developed by urban planners back in the 70s at Cal. And wicked problems, there's the 10 attributes of a wicked problem in the long article. There's the 6 attributes of a wicked problem in the short article. And what it boils down to, they're basically human problems. They're basically, they're technical problems that are well defined, where the criteria are clear, they're repeatable and so on. But there's a whole class of problems that don't obey those rules. They're called wicked problems that are messy, where the criteria are not known until you even have the answer. Once the answer is found, you can't repeat it again because it doesn't reapply. I mean, you can't put Singapore in Cincinnati and expect it to work if you're an urban planner. And we call those, wicked problems, things where you build your way forward, and design thinking is really good for that. It's just one way of thinking. It's not the new religion, it's a technique. Now, what is design thinking? Real briefly, it's 2 things. It's a set of mindsets, real-life mindsets, and it's a set of process steps. The mindsets are these. Again, very briefly, we start with curiosity. Why? Because that's where the energy is, not necessarily where the most strategic thing or the riskiest thing or the most valuable thing or the most unknown thing, the most curious thing, because that's where the human energy is that we can draw on to keep the process going. We radically collaborate. That doesn't mean we do radical things. It means we radically listen. We tap into every single point of view available. We want to make sure we hear from all the experts before we get started at all, which will probably invite us to reframe things and think about it in a different way. We do so mindful of process. The most important mindfulness is to remember, when am I deferring judgment and when am I using judgment? When am I flaring and going wide, and when am I focusing and going narrow? Got to keep that in mind, and learning how to defer judgment and catch yourself in the act of doing it and holding it off is a crucial skill. And when in doubt, do something. We'd rather do it than think about it. We'd rather act than analyze. The process is these 5 steps. Caterpillar has been around for a long time. We started the design program at Stanford in 1963, I believe. David Kelly, our senior tenure professor in design, is the 3rd generation guru of design at Stanford. He comes on the heels of Bob McKim, who really built the program, and it got started by John Arnold years ago, actually from MIT, and John started it the way we start lots of things in Silicon Valley. He couldn't get approval, so he just printed his own letterhead and did it anyway. So we just invented ourselves. But we start with empathy. Problem find before you problem solve. Rick has already mentioned that. Then you define where you're coming from. Then you have a whole bunch of ideas. Pick the ones that are really worth investing in a little bit. Prototype them over and over again. We'll talk more about that. And then finally test before you visit them on the real world. We always believe in, and state more explicitly in life design, step 0, which is accept. You have to start from where you are. You cannot solve a problem you're not willing to have.